Welcome to the American Red Cross Northern California Coastal Region Speaker Series session. We will begin the program momentarily. Welcome and thank you for joining the American Red Cross Northern California Coastal Region Speaker Series session. My name is Veronica Oberholzer and I'm honored to be today's moderator. We are thrilled to have you join today's conversation and hope you will leave more informed and inspired about the work of the Red Cross. Today's session is being recorded and you are in listen-only mode so we can give our full attention to today's speakers. If you have any questions or comments throughout the session, feel free to submit them in the chat box so I can review and compile them. Our speakers will try to get to as many of them as possible during our question and answer session towards the end of the program. Remaining questions will be answered in a follow-up email along with the event recording and a survey. Today, you will hear from three outstanding speakers who will share updates and stories on how the Red Cross works with our National Home Fire Campaign and about the work of our Disaster Action Teams, or DAT teams, who respond daily to home fires and other disasters. With that, I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Anna Romero. Anna started as a volunteer with the Northern California Red Cross in 2011 and has served in several capacities as a volunteer and employee for 11 years. As our region's disaster preparedness manager, she is determined to make preparedness accessible to the most vulnerable communities in the Bay Area and beyond, giving them tools to prevent and respond to any disaster that might come their way. She is also the founder and co-chair of our region's Inclusion, Belonging, Equity, and Access Task Force, and is passionate to be a part of the Red Cross Latino Engagement Team. Thank you and welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Veronica. It's a pleasure being with everyone today. So I'd like to kick off the session with an overview of what the Red Cross Home Fire Campaign is to provide a little context and background. Most of us don't realize that we have just 2 minutes to escape a home fire, which is the nation's most frequent disaster. That's why the American Red Cross is preparing families to act quickly through our home fire campaign alongside with our community partners. Our goal is to prevent fire-related deaths and injuries in the US by installing 2.5 million free smoke alarms and helping to make 1 million households safer in at-risk communities. On average, 7 people die every day from a home fire, most impacting children and the elderly. More than 30 people suffer injuries from home fires every day, and more than $7 million in property damage occur every year from home fires. Since the launch of the campaign in 2014, the home fire campaign has already accomplished so much, as you can see here, both nationally and within our region in particular, which serves more than 10 million people across 15 counties, going all the way from Monterey to Sonoma. So there are 5 main ways to engage with a home fire campaign. First, you can learn about home fire safety. You and your families can learn how to prevent, prepare for, and respond to, and recover after a home fire. You can also teach kids about preparedness. The Red Cross works closely with schools and youth serving organizations to provide emergency preparedness education to young people to build resilience communities, to build resiliency in communities across the country and abroad. Our age-appropriate preparedness materials include engaging activities and easy action steps that youth will find both very fun and very effective. So the first program that we have is our Prepare with Pedro, which is aimed to kindergarteners until 2nd graders, where students are being taught very basic response and preparedness skills in a storybook format. And it's starring our own Pedro the penguin, which is a very cute penguin. So another is the Pillowcase Project, which started actually after college students in Louisiana were forced to evacuate quickly from their dorms during Hurricane Katrina. They packed all their essentials in their pillowcase before evacuating. So this program is aimed towards 3rd to 5th graders, where they learn to make low-cost preparedness kits to store in a sturdy pillowcase. And then we have also a variety of fire safety challenges, activity books, and other youth clubs and youth action campaigns available for this age group as well. The other way that you can engage is by volunteering. So you can volunteer to respond to a home fire in your local community or any of the activities that I mentioned before. There is training associated with that. So when you're out with the Red Cross team responding, you know exactly what you need to do. You can also support financially. Your donations enable the Red Cross to provide food, comfort, aid to those that have lost their home to fires. And you can also install free smoke alarms in high-risk neighborhoods nationwide and educate families on fire safety, which actually brings me to our 5th way to support the Red Cross, which is one that we will dive a little bit more today. So it's join the movement to sound the alarm. So you've heard us share that home fires claim 7 lives every day. But did you actually know that having working smoke alarms can cut the risk of death by half? That's why every spring, the American Red Cross rallies volunteers to install at least 50,000 free smoke alarms nationwide as part of our Sound the Alarm events. The campaign is made possible through generous support from many individuals and companies here on this call today, who are members of our annual disaster giving program, ADGP, and Disaster Responder Program. These partners make annual commitments which enable the Red Cross to help communities prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters, like home fires, anytime and anywhere. The Red Cross partners with local fire departments and community groups to install smoke alarms in neighborhoods at greatest risk from home fires and engage youth in fire education and prevention efforts. Just this past month in May, our region in particular hosted 14 events around the Bay Area with a goal to install 1,020 smoke alarms and share safety information in at-risk communities. I am actually very proud to share that 299 volunteers installed 1,217 smoke alarms in 480 homes, and educated more than 1,500 residents to make their homes safer so that they now are prepared in case of a home fire. Now I want to share a brief experience I had during one of these events, during one of these sound the alarm events this past May. One of the residents of the homes where we installed alarms had recently lost her husband. And she was so grateful that the Red Cross was there in her home, installing new smoke alarms and replacing old ones. She shared that ever since her husband had passed away, she had been afraid that something like a home fire might happen and she wouldn't wake up. She is so grateful that the Red Cross made her feel safe and show her what to do in case a fire does break out in the future. During our visits, we work with families to build a home fire escape plan and a home fire safety checklist where we practice the 2-minute drill. We'll include a link to this post-event follow-up email so you can create also your plan and work with your household. So I hope that this helps you give a broad overview of what the home fire campaign is and what all the different components of it are as we strive to serve our neighbors 24/7. I'm incredibly proud of this line of service we provide. I am very grateful to our partners and volunteers like you who enable this work to happen each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that wonderful overview. I'd now like to introduce you to Terry Unter. After retiring from a career in high tech, Terry was inspired to join the American Red Cross as a volunteer in 2014. He has been involved in a broad range of activities and was recently honored with the 2021 Presidential Award for Excellence for demonstrating exceptional performance and service in support of the Red Cross. He currently serves as the chair of the Silicon Valley Red Cross Chapter Board of Directors. In addition to his work supporting many Red Cross programs, he is also a leader of the Home Fire Campaign and Sound the Alarm initiatives, with a particular focus on at-risk populations. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Veronica, and it really is a great pleasure to be with you here, to be here with you all today. When I retired 8 years ago, I was looking for an opportunity to give back. Like many people, I knew that the American Red Cross was active during major disasters, but I wanted to do something more immediate in my own community. I wasn't sure what to do. By chance, and surprising to me at the time, I learned about one of the most active but little known American Red Cross programs called the Disaster Action Team, or DAT for short. Disaster action teams across the USA respond roughly 60,000 times a year to alleviate the suffering of people affected by small and large disasters. Most of them are home fires. Just think about that. A Red Cross response happens on average every 8 minutes. Each county in the nation has trained volunteer teams which, when requested, commit to be on scene at a disaster within an hour. The Disaster Action Team meets with those affected by the incident and provides recovery services immediately, including financial assistance, access to health, mental health, and spiritual care resources. The goal of this immediate response is to ensure that people affected by a disaster have a plan which includes a safe place to stay and the means to feed their family, and to do this in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. The assistance also extends to replacing lost prescription medications, lost eyeglasses, other durable medical equipment that may have been lost, CPAP machines, wheelchairs, all kinds of things. But very often, the most important thing that the Red Cross provides is to provide a hug and the reassurance that there is an organization which will help them to focus on their recovery and not just on the drama that has just occurred. Once the Red Cross Disaster Action Team has completed its work, other Red Cross teams follow up to provide ongoing advice and assistance until the clients, as we call them, agree that they have a viable recovery plan. Just to give you an idea of the scale in our own region, between January the 1st and May the 31st of this year, the Northern California Coastal Region Disaster Action Teams responded to more than 5 calls per day, including a total of 520 single-family fires and 175 multi-family fires, several of which were large apartment complexes. Through working with the DAT program, I've personally deployed to well over 100 residential fires, ranging from small homes to very large apartment complexes. Sadly, I've seen the tragedy when a home fire results in fatalities. And it's that led me to be a strong promoter of the Sound the Alarm program that Anna has just so beautifully described. I would like to talk about a couple of fatal fires that occurred in our region in recent times, because these illustrate different important aspects of the Sound the Alarm program. Both of these examples happened in what are frequently called mobile homes, but which in reality are much more permanent structures, which more accurately should be called manufactured homes. My first example illustrates the need for smoke alarms. In August 2017, there was a fatal fire at a San Jose manufactured home park named the Golden Wheel Mobile Home Park. And in that fire, 2 small children and their grandfather lost their lives. We had already been organizing smoke alarm installation events in various neighborhoods in Santa Clara County, but this tragedy really made everyone focus on the very high risk of fires in manufactured homes. Fires in these homes spread so rapidly that there may be much less than 2 minutes to escape. So every second of early warning that a smoke alarm can give is precious. Thanks to a city council member who reached out to the Silicon Valley chapter, we met with the San Jose fire chief. And after discussing this risk issue and the work that the Red Cross was focusing on with the Sound the Alarm program, we agreed a joint program between the Red Cross and the San Jose Fire Department to target the more than 60 manufactured home parks that are within the city of San Jose, plus additional ones in the county. This collaboration has grown stronger and stronger since 2017 and has allowed our installation events to reach over 1,700 homes in more than 20 Sound the Alarm events that we've held since the start of the joint program. And these events have involved hundreds of volunteers who turn out on a Saturday to devote their time to helping save lives. I'd particularly like to acknowledge my good friend, Captain Biendone of the San Jose Fire Department, for the great devotion that he has shown in promoting these events and bringing many of his colleagues to support them in our work of saving lives. I'd also like to mention the San Jose Fire Chief, Robert Sapien, who has turned up to probably 15 of these 20 events himself to give a talk to the volunteers before they go out and install alarms. So that's why smoke alarms are so important. This family with these tragic losses may have been able to avoid the losses had there been a smoke alarm in that home. This brings me to the second important aspect of what we wish to accomplish when we meet the members of the home when we're installing alarms. The need for an evacuation plan with a pre-identified meeting place, plus the importance of us practicing the escape plan, especially with children. Another fire occurred in a San Jose manufactured home in 2018. A young man and his 6-year-old niece were in the home when the fire started. The young man rushed out of the house, but then, because he couldn't see his niece, he decided to go back into the burning structure because he thought that she was still inside. She had already escaped, but through a different exit. And sadly, he was overcome by smoke and lost his life. If only this family had benefited from the home fire safety training that our Sound the Alarm teams carry out when we visit homes, if they had had an agreed meeting location, and if this child had practiced the escape plan, the tragedy might have been avoided. Sadly, these avoidable deaths keep occurring. Just a few weeks ago, early on a Sunday morning, a fire started in a home that's just 100 yards from my own house. I can actually see it from my backyard, smoke billowing from the home. The fire department was here within minutes after the alarm was raised by neighbors. but it was too late for the occupant. And according to the firefighters, the home didn't have any smoke alarms, and the occupant had already passed away due to smoke inhalation before they arrived. So I'm sorry to dwell on tragic events, but I hope that such tragic and unavoidable events will help you understand why I'm such a fervent supporter of the Sound the Alarm program, both as a donor and as a volunteer. There's huge value in this program, and it extends well beyond the installation of life-saving alarms and doing fire safety training. The events engage many, many volunteers, not only from the Red Cross, but also from other organizations in the community, including fire departments, local companies, faith-based groups, and other nonprofits. All of this helps to make the Red Cross far more visible in the community and trusted by the households that we visit. So I very much encourage you to support the program, not only by providing financial support, but with your time by volunteering at an event. They're great fun, and you can do good and enjoy it at the same time. And I'd like to thank the special guest appearance of my puppy Dickens. So thank you for letting me share my passion of volunteering with the Red Cross. I hope you can support and join us to help save lives.
Thank you, Terry, for sharing those impactful stories and for being a champion of the campaign. I know you may have a few questions for Terry, so I want to remind you to submit any questions you may have for any of our speakers in the Q&A feature. We will get through as many as we can towards the end of the program. Now it is my honor to introduce you to our next speaker, Paula Metz. Professionally, Paula has worked in printing technology solutions for nearly 40 years. She started in the 1980s with IBM in San Francisco, then moved to Lexington, Kentucky in the 90s to work in product management for Lexmark, and returned to California in 1998. She currently sells high-production continuous forms printers for Ricoh Americas in California. Paula is a native San Franciscan, where she attended high school and San Francisco State University. She currently lives with her 2 adult sons and her 94-year-old mother in Roseville, California. Her favorite activity is taking care of her garden, which she calls her sanctuary. We are honored to have her join us today to share how Red Cross preparedness training helped save the lives of her and her family. Welcome, Paula.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I do want to say that the last thing I ever expected was to be the victim of a fire in a suburban area. So when I hear the stories that both Terry and Anna have shared about how many happen, you know, I sit there and go, my goodness, never in my life did I think I'd have to go through this experience. So just a quick little background. My brother-in-law is the Regional Disaster Program Officer for the Gold County Red Cross up in the Sacramento and Gold Country region. It was through him that he asked me to participate in the home fire safety program. And because of COVID, they weren't able to go to homes to be able to provide that service. So we did it as a telephone interview. And I said, yeah, sure, whatever, Robin, I'll be your guinea pig. And it was a month before the fire that he took me through the program. So everything was very fresh in my mind at the time that this situation happened. It was a very, very hot day in Sacramento, Roseville area. It was August 8th of last year. And Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting in my house chatting away with my kids, getting ready to run out and see a movie with them. And all of a sudden, there's a guy banging on the front door, and I'm like, what the heck? So we open the door, and he goes, get out, there's a fire next door. So we go racing out, thinking we'll grab our hoses and help put it out, right? Oh no, between my house and the next house, as you can see in the photo, there were 21 Italian cypress trees that had gone up like matchsticks. And the heat of the fire just took down the fence and everything else as quickly as possible. So the first impulse is, how do you try to help everybody? Then you realize, nope, it's beyond me. So we quickly went into the preparedness that I had just experienced with my brother-in-law, and we tried to get my mother moving with her walker out through the garage to get into the street, out of the house. I yell up to my kids, grab your car keys, move all the cars out of the way so they don't add to the situation as an accelerant, and take, get out of the house is the first thing we did. In minutes, there were 4 fire engines circling the area. One fire engine dedicated themselves to my home, went straight through the garage, through the family room, to the side where the right side of the house was now engulfed in flame, and put that out quickly. Unfortunately, they couldn't save my neighbor's house. It had 3 fire engines focused on it. So it was very quick. It was quicker than I ever thought it would be. We were able to get out, because the other thing that I learned through the experience is that embers fly. And so all the neighbors in the area, we were knocking on their doors saying, hey, get your houses out, wet down your area. And a lot of them found embers slowly moving along and engaging little fires here and there. So the firemen had their work to do with the 2 houses, and then neighbors were wetting down fences, wetting down anything that could ignite. So it was quite traumatic for a while. All the neighbors came to help. It was just an amazing community event, especially with my mom. I was focused on other things. A unknown neighbor said, come into our car, and they drove her down to the other end of the block, and which was good, because she couldn't have been outside in that heat for much period, for a very long period of time. And I was able to get to her about an hour later. Then, things started to calm down. Nice, the fire department told me that there weren't any volatile gases in the home, so we could stay in the home. Again, I only lost 1 elevation, just the right side of my home. I had, and I'll share a little bit more. I had artificial turf in my backyard. Most of the plants that I had in my garden were toast, and the artificial turf melted. The fire department left. The Red Cross came to talk to me. We were sitting in my living room chatting away about their program, as Terry had indicated. And my son looked out the dining room window and said, Mom, the shed's on fire. So one of those embers had creeped over to the other side of my house and ignited my shed. So we called the fire department back. They came, took out that fire. And you can say that I had more than my share of adrenaline rush that day. This photo right now shows the right side of my home and the trees, and the mess that a fire incurs. So after all was said and done, we still, for several days, were on the lookout for sneaking embers, which is something I hadn't anticipated. So I assigned my sons to walk around, especially at night, around the house every few hours to see whether or not anything was starting to smolder again. And the fire department did the same thing. They ran around the neighborhood looking for any suspectful smoldering, which, I don't think we would have thought of that. So that's another thing, lessons learned here. After everything was done, we were able to still live in our home. We did not lose everything, as my poor neighbors have. But even so, it's extremely disruptive, extremely traumatic. And I will tell you that the Red Cross called quite a few times to check in on me, check in on my family, and see how things were going. And I felt kind of bad mentioning, hey, I just lost my right elevation. My insurance company will take care of it. But they said, nonetheless, it's disruptive and it's disconcerting. But there was a sense on my part of feeling a little like, don't give me all this attention because I didn't lose that much. And they said, no, 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 it still has an impact on you. And I really appreciated that sentiment from them. So the after effect is now June. I am finally 100% complete. The insurance company was very nice and repaired all the damage that occurred. My neighbor has been struggling with their company, and they're just now beginning to handle the replacement and demolition of their home. So I'll be happy to engage anyone if they have further questions, but thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you, Paula. We are so glad that you and your family are safe thanks to your neighbors and to the support of the Red Cross. And thank you to all of our speakers for providing such valuable information. We've had a lot of great questions come in that we will jump right into. This first question is for Anna. In 2014, we set out to reduce home fire deaths and injuries by 25% and increase the number of home fire responses by 10%. How are we doing on this?
Thank you, Veronica. That's a great question. It has actually been very difficult to measure this goal, given issues with reporting fatalities and fires at the national level. So we have actually moved away from that measure, and now we are referring primarily to the total campaign progress that we have done. So for example, the number of households served, alarms installed, and the documented lives saved, as you saw on a previous slide before. So these measures are a little more on track of what we can do on our end to track as we go along. So our new goal is to prevent fire-related deaths and injuries in the US by installing 2.5 million free smoke alarms and helping to make 1 million households safer in at-risk communities nationwide.
Thank you, Anna. This next question is also for you. What does the actual process look like during a home visit for the Sound the Alarm campaign?
Sure. So we actually have what we call the life-saving formula, which is home fire prevention education, effectively delivered, plus smoke alarms, properly installed, tested, and maintained, plus a 2-minute home fire escape plan. And all of that equals life saved. So how it works is that you would receive your training necessary to go into these homes, and then you would be placed into teams of either 2 or 3 volunteers. One would serve as a smoke alarm installer, the other as an educator, and the third one as a documenter. And then during the home visit fire, the installer ensures that the residence has working smoke alarms, and if they're not working, then they replace them with our free smoke alarms. And then the educator delivers effective home fire prevention education to the residents and assists the residents as they develop that 2-minute home fire escape plan. And lastly, we have the documenter that makes sure that all the information that was shared with the residents is captured and recorded for accountability purpose. So each of these components is equally important and is critical to saving lives, right? So every resident keeps at least 1 home fire escape plan, 1 home fire safety checklist, and any new smoke alarms that were installed.
Thank you, Anna. This next question is for Terry. As part of the Sound the Alarm campaign, what does follow-up from the Red Cross look like for those who have experienced a fire?
Thank you for the question. I think Paula did explain a little of it, but generally, once the disaster action team has completed their initial interaction with the people affected by the fire. And as I said earlier, the goal is to make sure that they start thinking about their recovery plan, start thinking about it right away instead of dwelling on the incident. Make sure they have somewhere safe to go, make sure that they have the means to feed their family and to replace any medical equipment that they may need. But after that, the disaster action team hands off the incident to our disaster care program. So we have recovery caseworkers who will then follow up on a regular basis with the family until the family affected tells us to stop, essentially. So until they acknowledge that they now have a complete recovery plan and they feel that they can move ahead without additional assistance from the Red Cross. We also provide them follow-up from what we call individual disaster care, which again depends on their needs, and it's on their expressed needs, because one of the things that we're very keen to do is listen to what people need rather than try and tell them what we think they need. So if they need follow-up because of lost medications, or maybe somebody's been hospitalized, we have a health team that will follow up with them. If they have concerns about the trauma of the fire, it's often the case with children. We have disaster mental health, and we also have disaster spiritual care workers who will interact with the family to make sure that they get back on track. So it's a sort of complete menu of additional help. There is also some small additional financial assistance available if people have particular documented needs. And that's basically how it goes. And I think Paula already talked a little bit about it. Almost got annoying because she felt she didn't need the help. But honestly, people do. So Paula, how did it feel? How was it?
Oh, I'll tell you, first, I appreciated that people were taking the time to ask me how I was doing. And they were very thoughtful. And yes, they did listen. And they also made sure that if I needed anything, they would provide it. And I was given some financial assistance for that first day. There was no way that my mother could have stayed in the house with all our windows were broken on that side, and her bedroom was on that side. So she and I moved to a hotel for that first night. And then she transferred herself to my sister's home for about a month while we were doing all the interior repair and trying to get the home back into a safe position. I don't know that I answered fully, but.
No, I think so. Thank you. I think it's so hopefully we've answered that question as concerned.
Yeah, thank you both. This next question is for Paula. What was your biggest takeaway from your home fire experience that you would want to advise others on?
I think that disaster strikes when you never expect it, right? I mean, if you had told me that that was going to happen that day, I was going to say, no way, it's not going to happen. And it happened very quickly. If the neighbor hadn't pounded on the door, we hadn't all gotten everybody out of the house. I don't know that I even knew what 2 minutes felt like, but we definitely got moving very, very quickly. I don't think I would have thought about moving the cars had it not been for my brother-in-law saying, get all your accelerants out of the way. And when we were standing outside watching all the action going on, I was thinking, wow, will I even have a house tonight? So I think the fact that when fight or flight came into motion with the disaster, the words that my brother-in-law had told me popped into my head, and we went into that action. So I think the preparedness was super helpful. And just, knock on wood that I had the least amount of damage under the circumstances. It could have been way worse.
Thank you, Paula. I think that we'll all leave here today thinking that disasters can strike when you least expect it. Very profound. This next question.
Somebody posted another question for me, and I was thinking I could just address it now in the chat.
Thank you.
What have I changed? So I'm a terrible pack rat. My garage was full of stuff. I have definitely worked hard on throwing away things in the garage that I don't need and also making sure there's always a very wide, clear path to get my mother out because she uses a walker. So that definitely has become a new change. And I run around my house barefoot. I ran out of the house barefoot, not a smart move. I now keep a pair of shoes next to the doors so that if there were to be another disaster, I quickly get shoes on my feet, because I was walking on some embers at the day of the fire. I was like, oh, what an idiot, and ran back in the house and just grabbed some slippers.
Wow, thank you for sharing that important preparedness information. And this next question is also about preparedness. Anna, we've received several specific questions about preparedness and some fire safety questions, such as what contents should be in a to-go bag and how to break a window. Where would you recommend that people find more information?
Yeah, I love this question. I think we have several ways where you can get more information on how to prepare for disasters. So I would recommend checking out our webpage, redcross.org/prepare, where you can find a variety of resources that will help you and your family be prepared for any disaster. In addition, our region hosts every month a presentation focused on how to prevent home fires and how to keep your family safe. You'll learn the best and most effective locations to put your smoke alarms in your home. You will also have the time to review the home fire checklist, and we'll also advise you on drafting your home fire escape plan. So our next virtual presentation is on June 28th at 5:30, and it's open to everyone. And we will share the link to register in a follow-up email.
Thank you, Anna. This next question is for Terry. How would you suggest convincing neighborhood elders to accept assistance to create a plan for a safe exit strategy and to install smoke detectors?
That's a really great question. So it depends on your perspective. If it's somebody in your neighborhood, I think we've provided you with some really strong stories that you can share with them about how little time they have to get out and how little warning they will have and how important that preparation is. I thought Paula's last comments about clearing a path so her mother can get out is so important. And we often run into situations where people have a fire and then have trouble getting out of the home. So those are very important things. I think sharing these kind of stories is important. You can also reach out to your local Red Cross office. We have a lot of Red Cross volunteers who would be happy to come and give a talk at a senior center or any other sort of community organization to explain some of the things that we can do to help them and help make them safer. And then finally, if somebody really is interested and there isn't an actual campaign going on in their neighborhood, they can go to our website, and many of our chapters, many of our territories run what we call appointment programs. So if somebody calls us and says, I really would like to have smoke alarms put in my home, then we will make an appointment and send a team to that specific home and install them. So there are many different ways that we can help make it easy for someone. But I think sharing the stories is probably the most important thing. People just don't think it's going to happen to them till it does.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you to everybody who submitted questions for our speakers today. We have no more questions, so I'd like to invite Anna to conclude today's session with a few closing remarks. Anna, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm really moved by today's stories shared by Terry and Paula, and I'm really grateful that the Red Cross provides different avenues to prevent, prepare, and respond to home fires. So thank you to those of you today on this call that support the home fire campaign, or those who have personally been affected by a home fire and are now serving our community to ensure another family doesn't have to go through that experience. You're helping us close the gap to prevent fire-related deaths and injuries across the US and here in our backyards. If you're interested in getting involved with the campaign, want to volunteer in a local neighborhood to install smoke alarms, want to join any of our free preparedness presentations, or have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you once again for spending part of your day with us. And thanks to our speakers for sharing such valuable information and your stories. They were really impactful. Our next speaker series session will be in fall of 2022. So keep an eye out for an invite. And thank you again, everyone.
A follow-up email with a recording for this session, along with a quick survey to gather your input, will be sent out later this week. Thank you once again to our amazing speakers for a wonderful discussion and to everyone who joined us today. This now concludes today's session. Enjoy the rest of your day.